Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a jet-fueled episode of The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. And here's your host, Alan Mosley. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of The Gold Standard. I am your host, Alan Mosley, and as always, you can follow us on social media, starting with Facebook, which is facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. By the way, that's where we stream all of our new episodes on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, but you can also catch them on your favorite podcasting platforms of choice, including Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Play. You can also follow me on Twitter, which is at Alan M. Mosley, but you don't have to do any of that, because you can just go to our website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com. If you want to support the show, consider becoming one of our Patreon members, which is patreon.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Now, if you're wondering, there's a little bit different look and sound this week. It's because the greatest producer in all of libertarian podcasting, Mr. Blake Osborne, is not with us today. He is out of town. I shouldn't say not with us. It makes it sound like he passed away. No, Blake is fine. Blake is here, but he's just not right here. So I'm going to have to do everything from the desk, which I got to tell you is a little bit weird to click all the little buttons and talking to the camera and microphone at the same time. But we're going to start off today by highlighting some of our friends, as we always do. So we're going to go over to the window capture, and we're going to look at the other 3%, which, by the way, guys, the other 3% is making some new pages because the Zuck has finally come for their main page. So check them out now at Meme Wars Episode 5, The Other 3% Strikes Back. That is now where you can find even more The Other 3% goodness. Right here, still more believable than the official story. It's got the Death Star shooting down the Twin Towers. You can tell these guys are friends of ours when someone here posts, "Today is not the day to push your twisted beliefs of what happened. Today is about remembering the ones who lost their lives." And of course, our good friends at the other 3% say, "We're trying to keep alive the memory that they died as pawns in someone's master plan. Thanks for sharing." That is how you know, ladies and gentlemen, they are friends of the Gold Standard. Also, by the way, you can go to the Status Quo. Check out the Status Quo podcast at thestatusquo.net. That is Nick and Matt that run that show. They're good friends of ours. Right here, they got episode 41, Uncensored Tactical with Pat Watson, is the most recent one they had out. I know that Matt had some experience in the military. He's definitely an anti-war advocate now. Definitely check out those guys at thestatusquo.net. And as always, our good friends at Liberty Memes. Now, you know that admins 1 and 2 over at Liberty Memes are not going to let Neocon Christmas go by without the spiciest of memes. And I gotta tell you, I am recording right now at 5:24 p.m. Central Time on 9/11/2019, and to my knowledge, the page has not been zucked yet. Repeat, the page has not been zucked yet. Good morning, sunshine, with prisoners without trial, indefinite detention, spying on civilians, Patriot Act, and unending war, heading over to the 9/11 cow. Edgy 9/11 jokes are now old enough to go to Afghanistan and die protecting oil and poppy fields in pointless forever wars. Oh, let's see with this one. Perpetuating the lies mocks the dead. I mock the government and their official story and will not stop doing so. While a few people mock online, hundreds of thousands of kids went to school today and got indoctrinated with lies. Amen to that. So, wow, that's kind of depressing last one there that I shared with you. But guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a gentleman who is no longer with us in terms of being employed by the Trump administration. I actually have a little preview to show you right here. Ugh, look at that. Where does the chin stop and the neck begin? We will try to answer that question when we come back from this break. Hey, did you see the playoff games last weekend?
Oh, you're into the sports ball game.
Sports Ball with Mike Meharry and Alan Mosley. SportsBallPodcast.com.
Sports ball is not a libertarian sports show. It's a sports show done by a couple of libertarians.
For when you need your bread in circuses.
Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. Email us at tgsalanmosley@gmail.com. literally, as I was sitting there during that commercial break, I noticed on my phone that our good friend Jim Bovard had just posted a new link. It's a USA Today op-ed by our good friend Jim Bovard talking about, we need to know, did the Saudis help fund 9/11 attacks? By Jim Bovard. That was actually published back in 2015, but he's musing, how much do we still not know about the attacks today and Saudi Arabian government's involvement? But our good friend Jim Bovard is actually going to be back on the show here, I think in probably, maybe not next week, but the week after that. We'll have to check on the scheduling. But Jim's going to be back with us, and we'll talk about that then. But in the meantime, I'm actually going to scare the audience again. There he is. Ugh. So for those of you who are listening at home and not watching the videos on YouTube or Facebook, I'm showing a picture of the dearly departed mustache, John Bolton, who was unceremoniously let go from the Trump administration, his position as National Security Advisor. So we're going to head back over to the window capture so we can take a look at the New York Times article here. Well, excuse me, we're going to start with the Guardian article. Donald Trump ousts top advisor John Bolton. Quote, I disagreed strongly with him. Don't we all? Donald Trump has fired National Security Advisor John Bolton in a pair of tweets in which he laid bare searing internal divisions within his inner circle, saying he had, quote, disagreed strongly with his top aide. The departure of such a resolute hawk raises the possibility that Trump's foreign policy could now make a dovish turn in the run up to next year's elections, in particular with respect to Iran. Well, I mean, that's obviously for the better of the world. And, I actually had another little article here that's interesting to go along with that. From CNN's Matt Egan, John Bolton was fired and the price of oil instantly fell. Imagine that. If the United States isn't pointing a barrel at another part of the Middle East and disrupting the entire region, then commerce can continue, people can trade peacefully, and prices go down. Oil prices fell swiftly on Tuesday after President Donald Trump fired Iran hawk John Bolton. I like how they actually just call him Iran hawk John Bolton as National Security Advisor. The surprise exit of Bolton prompted speculation that the tensions between the United States and Iran could ease, or at least the chance of a military conflict had decreased. U.S. oil tumbled as much as 2.2%. Down here from Matt Smith, Director of Commodity Strategy at Clipper Data. This is a knee-jerk reaction given that Bolton has been so adversarial with Iran. With his removal, there is an expectation there won't be as much vehemence in the tit-for-tat with Iran. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've done a number of episodes where we've talked about John Bolton. I know I've talked about John Bolton with my friend Sherry Voluntary over on Postcards from Somalia, which is another product of the Little O Productions community. I think I'll probably be talking to Suzanne Sherman over on the Wasatch Report, I believe this Friday, and we'll probably talk a little bit about 9/11, John Bolton, and related topics. I think the episode that we covered John Bolton the most was around episode 60, when we had Michael Bolton, who was is the founder and president of the 10th Amendment Center. I believe that was episode 60, Bolton versus Bolton. I want to say that's what we called that episode. And, that episode ended up going a little bit long, and I think both of us were a little bit depressed talking about it. But it's just the fact of the matter is that today is a great day because that warmongering POS is no longer in a position where he can have quite the influence that he had. So I don't want to attack Trump today for making a good decision, but I'm not going to give Donald Trump a bunch of credit today either, because we have to remind ourselves that, of course, it was Donald Trump that put John Bolton in the position he was in. And I believe I read right before we went on the program that one of Bolton's aides is the temporary acting National Security Advisor until someone else is appointed. So I think we're all going to have to sort of cool our jets on this one and see who the replacement is going to be. I saw Lindsey Graham in the news just last night talking about this and talking about potential replacements for John Bolton. And, of course, Lindsey Graham, who is just a John McCainite, if you will. In anyone that he suggests is a good idea is a terrible idea for peace and liberty. Make no mistake about it. So can't really celebrate too much until we know kind of where that's going to go. But there's a couple other things I wanted to highlight today in our sort of quick episode. So we're going to head back to the browser. The New York Times on today, of course, 9/11, had tweeted out a tweet that has since been deleted. But, you know, the wonderful thing about the internet is that everything's forever. New York Times tweeted out this morning, 18 years have passed since airplanes took aim and brought down the World Trade Center. Today, families will once again gather and grieve at the site where more than 2,000 people died. Now, no, airplanes don't take aim. Airplanes don't kill people. Malfunctions can kill people, or in this case, people can take over the cockpits and fly those planes, but it's people that do things. Airplanes don't do things. So no, airplanes did not take aim to bring down the World Trade Center. No, the hijackers took aim to bring down the World Trade Center. But, I actually saw my good friend Suzanne Sherman had posted on Facebook right before I started recording today that, I'm actually not, we shouldn't be criticizing the New York Times too much because this is actually right in line with their gun policy as well. Because, of course, they think that guns kill people, so if we ban guns, then people won't die. So by the New York Times' own logic, this is actually worded perfectly. We just have to ban airplanes, ladies and gentlemen, and less people will die. Wow. It's magnificent. I want to read a quick little blurb here. So this was from Beckett Adams. It was in the Washington Examiner. He said, I count at least two problems in this since-deleted tweet. First, there's no mention of who carried out the 9/11 attacks or what motivated them. That is like writing a headline memorializing the August 3rd El Paso, Texas mass shooting and not once mentioning that there was a white nationalist gunman involved. Second, and I hate to be the one to say this, airplanes lack agency. They did not take aim or crash themselves. The terrorists flying them did. That's really all I can say to that. But to make a serious point before we go to our last quick little break here is as the meme we share from Liberty Memes pointed out, we're looking at the 18th year anniversary of the attacks, which means, of course, that in the coming days, starting today and in the coming days, children who were born after the event took place, children who were born, definitely children who were young enough to not actually have watched the coverage of 9/11 as it unfolded or have any real understanding of what had happened, are today now old enough to serve in the armed forces and go to Iraq, go to Afghanistan. To say that means that the conflict has gone on too long is a fierce understatement. Of course, the conflict going on more than 1 second is too long because we have no business in that part of the world. Our military shouldn't be there. And of course, as students of Ron Paul would say, that just creates more blowback, which is the unintended consequences of the United States foreign policy and intervention in the internal affairs of other countries. But something that I've said on the show before that I took a little bit of heat for, but I know that you guys will have my back for this, and I want to share it again today. I know that some veterans watch the program. I know that there's a lot of vets that donated to Ron Paul back during his presidential days, running days. I know that there's a lot of vets who have come around to the ideas of liberty and peace, libertarianism, anarchy. And those guys, a lot of those guys are, I don't know if ashamed is the right word, but definitely regret having served in the American Armed Forces. They look back at that time and they see it now as that they were just the enforcers, the pawns in the state's game, that they weren't actually defending anyone's liberties. They were only securing the interests of an elite that do not have yours and my interest at heart. But I implore those folks, and also too, I mean, there's been another round in the news talking about the statistics of suicides among military veterans, which is really sad, and it's a terrible thing. And obviously if that applies to you, or if a friend or a loved one is dealing with depression or dealing with the fallout of that type of service, then, I mean, I definitely implore those people to talk to someone, to reach out, to get some help. But I challenge those people as well. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I challenge those people to not just regret and move on, to not take the easy way out by just simply being upset and being angry. Because being angry and being bitter doesn't really get us very much. You have to figure out a way to turn that into some sort of positive force. And I can give you one perfect example right now. If you're a veteran and you can hear my voice right now and you are not happy with your service, with what you did overseas, what masters you were serving, then this is what you can do for penance. You can go down to those recruiting halls. You can go to those high schools where the recruiters are lined up outside the doors and in the cafeterias. You can talk to young people in your community. Definitely the 17, the 18, the 19-year-olds, the kids who are looking for college tuition. Go and talk to them and implore them, do not enlist. You guys know by now that I'm not a big fan of the Libertarian Party. I'm not affiliated with any political party because political parties only serve to promote politicians and get votes. I don't vote. I'm an anarchist. I don't support any political candidate of any type on any level. With that said, I know that some of you guys do, and that's great. More power to you. But we don't live in a free world, and I can say with almost certainty we never will. The idea of politics is not for liberty to bud. It is for continuing centralization of power to move ever towards an more and more authoritarian, totalitarian state. I don't think you can vote yourself free nor spend yourself rich. But if you were to say to me, Alan, well, that sounds really depressing, then does that mean we just give up? Well, no, we don't just give up. But I think in terms of trying to promote peace, in terms of trying to pull the reins back on American foreign policy, the one thing that we as individuals can do is to speak to as many young people as we can to help them to understand peace and free markets, and to implore them, do not enlist in the military. Don't go join the Army. Don't go looking for a GI Bill. Find another way. In fact, with the way that education is nowadays, not going to college at all is probably a better move. But even if you're someone who's looking for a ticket to secondary schooling, don't join the military. If the military fails time and time again to meet its recruiting drives, then that will at least put some tar in the road for the military-industrial complex. I think that there's more likelihood that actually creates real change than anything you can do in the voting booth. So again, to all the veterans out there, to the Ron Paul people out there, your penance is talk to young people, talk to the people in your community, and tell them, don't be like me, don't enlist. So with that, we're going to take our last break, guys.
Have you ever been talking politics with a friend and told, if you don't like it here, you should just move to Somalia?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, from the sandy beaches of Mogadishu, Sherry and I bring you Postcards from Somalia, one of the newer products of Little L Productions, where we take on all of the fallacies of the people who say, if you don't like it, you can just get out. Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. Email us at tgsalanmosley@gmail.com. So I found it during this last break. We're going to go one more quick time back. USA Today from July 6, 2015. We need to know, did Saudis help fund 9/11 attacks? By our great friend, Jim Bovard. Do Americans have the right to learn whether a foreign government helped finance the 9/11 attacks? A growing number of congressmen and senators are demanding that a 28-page portion of a 2002 congressional report finally be declassified. Imagine that. They've classified things that might be unattractive to Saudi nationals. So I'm scrolling down here, all these talking about Representative Walter Jones, who's no longer with us. Revived the push to declassify those pages in 2013. Jones is a conservative stalwart, best known for coining the phrase freedom fries in 2003 when France opposed invading Iraq, but he has since become one of the most outspoken opponents of reckless U.S. intervention abroad. How ironic that I came across a little blurb about Walter Jones on Today of all days on this topic. Jones explained that he introduced the resolution because, quote, American people deserve the truth. Releasing these pages will enhance our national security, not harm it. Wow. What a time to find that little blurb. So I'm going to frighten the audience one more time. There he is. So I think where you see the dimple, that's where the chin starts. Right there. That's where the chin starts. So that's my guess. So guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. You can find us on social media, which is facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Twitter is @Alan M. Mosley. Don't do any of that. Go to our website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com. Patreon, support us, patreon.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Also, you can find us on the Cerberus Radio Network. Our good friends such as Suzanne Sherman, Jeff, Greg, Justin Spears, everyone out there with Cerberus Radio. We're happy to be networked with them as well. And you can find other great programs on this network, such as Sports Ball with Mike and Alan, which you can find now on Thursdays. There's Postcards from Somalia that I do with Sherry, who also does the Sherry Voluntary Show, and, of course, Godarchy with Mike Meharry. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.